You know that feeling when you connect with someone and it's so powerful, it feels like a force of nature? Well, what if it is? What if the rules that guide our relationships are just as real, just as fundamental as the laws of physics that hold the entire universe together? So, to get into this idea, let's start with a love letter. Yeah, a love letter. But this isn't your typical one. This one is written in the language of physics itself, a language that's trying to get at the very forces that don't just move us through space, but pull us toward each other. It starts with this idea of a personal singularity. I mean, in physics, that's the Big Bang, right? The point where everything kicked off. But in a relationship, it's that moment you meet that person. And just like that, the whole universe of your life just contracts. It finds this incredible new center of gravity, and it's them. And in this brand new universe you've got, that person becomes your anchor. They're like your gravitational constant, the one stable thing in life's totally chaotic equation that keeps everything from flying apart. They keep you in orbit. And this part, wow, this is all about resilience. The idea is that in the right kind of connection, even when you collide, when there's friction, it's not destructive. No, it becomes a source of heat, of energy, of transformation. Okay, so this all sounds incredibly beautiful, doesn't it? It's really poetic. But here's the thing. What if it's more than just that? What if this isn't just a pretty metaphor, but an actual model for understanding how we connect? And that's the big question, right? And the answer is yes. Underneath all this poetry, there's a real structured framework, one that's designed to give us a totally new language for talking about our connections. It's called relational physics, and really it's a way of looking at everything, love, friendship, family, through the lens of things like force and energy and motion. It's like a blueprint for all those invisible dynamics that are constantly shaping our lives. All right, let's really get into it. We're going to break down the core principles of this whole system. I mean, how do you actually calculate the forces between two people? Let's find out. So, first up, attraction. Now, in this model, it's not just some vague feeling, it's a measurable force. Think of it like a magnetic field, This invisible pull that gets stronger not just when you're physically close, but when you're emotionally close too. Okay, so how does this model actually measure attraction? Well, it boils down to two key things you see right here: compatibility and distance. It's a lot like gravity, actually. The more compatible two people are, the stronger that natural pull is between them. But, just like planets, distance matters. The further apart you are, emotionally or physically, the weaker that force can feel. So, real, lasting attraction, according to this, is this beautiful balance between those two powerful things. All right, next up is passion. And relational physics sees passion not as some feeling that just sits there, but as kinetic energy. It's literally the energy of a relationship in motion. And the way it breaks this down is it's fascinating. So the M in the equation, that's for mutual willingness. You can think of it as the mass of the relationship, right? It's built up from all that shared investment. And then V is vulnerability speed. That's the velocity. It's a measure of how quickly you're both willing to be open, to be honest with each other. So what this tells us is that the most intense passion, it happens when you have a ton of mutual investment combined with a really fast move toward being vulnerable and truthful. But what about the tough stuff? What about conflict? Well, this framework has a really interesting take. It reimagines it as tension. Think of it like stored potential energy. You know, that pressure that builds up during an argument? It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just energy waiting to be released. And how that energy gets released? Well, that leads to two totally different outcomes. You've got your elastic relationships. They can stretch under that pressure, right? They use that stored energy to bounce back, maybe even stronger than before. But then you have rigid relationships. They can't handle the strain, and under enough pressure, they just snap. And all of this brings us to this incredibly powerful line, one that I think captures the single most important force in this entire system. It's this idea that the pull you feel toward one person can actually feel more fundamental, more real than gravity itself. And that fundamental force? It's trust. In relational physics, trust isn't just another piece of the puzzle. No, it is the gravitational constant. It's G. It's the one underlying value that makes every other equation work. Simple as that. Without it, any connection just drifts apart into chaos. So, Okay, we've gone through all these concepts. What does it all mean? What does it give us? Well, it gives us a new lens, a really practical, almost analytical way to look at our own relationships and finally understand the invisible forces that are at play. So let's wrap our heads around this. This whole framework is basically asking us to see our connections not as these static, fixed things, but as dynamic systems that are always in motion. It teaches us that conflict isn't a disaster, it's potential energy you can use for growth. And most importantly, it puts trust right at the center of everything, the essential constant that holds it all together. It's a whole new language, really, for talking about the physics of our own hearts.
And one last thing, this framework defines growth in a super specific way. It defines it as acceleration, and you can actually measure it. It's the change in vulnerability over time.
And this, I think, is the key insight of the whole thing. Growth isn't about being perfect. It's not about never having problems. It's about the direction of your momentum. A healthy connection, a growing connection, is one that's always, always accelerating toward more openness, more truth, and more vulnerability. So I'll just leave you with this one question to mull over. If you think about your most important relationship, your most important connection, as a force in motion, governed by all these principles, where is it accelerating? Is it accelerating towards something, or is it accelerating away?